If I can. Ooh, we live.
Hello, good people.
Hello.
How is everyone doing tonight?
We're good. At least I'm trying to be good.
We surviving. We here. By the grace of God, because it has been a week.
It has been.
It has been a week.
Honey, a week that I would like to forget.
Girl. But I'm so glad that we are here because we have been super, super excited about tonight. And we have a very, very special guest. And we can't wait for you all to hear from her. So, first, welcome to all our viewers. You are live with the Cape MD. I'm Dr. Kristen. I'm here with
Dr. Tamika.
And Dr. Amber and Dr. Lakeisha couldn't join us tonight. Y'all, there have been some crazy storms going on in the Southeast. So prayers to everyone affected by the storms. I know Dr. Amber has not had any internet all day, so she can't join us. But we're here and we're so excited to welcome Dr. Brandy Rudolph Bowling. She is a triple board certified physician. Did y'all hear me?
Triple board.
Not one, not twice, but 3 times. She is board certified in pediatrics, in adult psychiatry, and in child and adolescent psychiatry. So y'all help me welcome Dr. Bowling. Dr. Brandy, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. I am already having a fabulous time.
We are too.
I'm excited.
Thank you for coming on and helping us talk about this topic.
Yes.
It's the topic that hits close to home for Dr. Tamika and myself, literally.
Absolutely. So in case you guys do not know, both of our children, our oldest children, both have really bad ADD. My son has really bad ADD and her daughter has really bad ADHD. And so that it's super important that we kind of get rid of those myths and what you can do, what you can't do, how you can prevent it, and all that kind of stuff. Dr. Brandy is here to teach us that because look, I'm a mother first and a doctor second. And when it comes to my child, it is not my diet. It is not my ability to diagnose my own child. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go. Well, that is what I am here for. And I'm so excited to be with you ladies.
Yeah,
we're happy to have
you. Yes. Y'all like to sing like me, I can tell.
Well, I don't know. How do you want to start off, Dr. Tamika? Do you want to, I don't mind sharing a little bit of my story.
We can share a little bit of both. Start with Grace, and then I'll move on to RJ, and then we'll let Dr. Brandy take over from there.
Let's do it. That sounds good. So my daughter, I would say when she was a toddler, we started to notice that there were some behaviors that we just couldn't really understand or explain. And of course, being first-time parents, you have all these other people chiming in like, oh, well, you need to do this, you need to try that. And nothing seemed to work to correct these behaviors or prevent these behaviors. And, for my husband and I, at first, it just seemed like, being a frustrated first-time parent. You're just trying your best. You're learning as you go. But there were certain things that just stuck out to both of us as, I don't know if this is just, kids being kids, So we were really curious to find out, okay, not just what's going on with our child, but how can we best help our child? Because whatever we were doing was not working. So we did take her to a child psychologist because we were like, we need help. We were not afraid to admit that we can't figure this out by ourselves. And so we did eventually get her tested, and she did get diagnosed with ADHD. We did make the decision to start her on medication in kindergarten. And we made the decision to start her early because we saw how bright she was. We saw how smart and intelligent she was. And we saw how much she liked to learn, but she was hindered by her hyperactivity specifically. She was very impulsive. And we just knew that wasn't, conducive to her learning environment. And we did not want her to be labeled as, the troublemaker in school. We didn't want her to be labeled as, the kid that's just can't pay attention, is always being impulsive. So, we decided to start her on medication, and we actually didn't tell her teachers ahead of time. We were like, let's just start the medications, and let's see what happens. It just so happened that her first parent-teacher conference was like 2 weeks after we started her on medication. And my husband and I walked in the room, we sat down, and like literally the first thing out of their mouth was, "What have y'all done differently? Grace is a completely different student." And they literally were like, "It like has been for the last couple of weeks." And we're like,
yeah, I purposely never told anyone RJ was on medicine. Like that was a big deal for me. Like I was like, I don't want people to label my son. I'm just gonna put him on the medicine after he was diagnosed. And
what happened?
I promise we missed a dose. I think my husband, he was more of a miss a dose person. We'll talk about that later. It comes with the stigma, and I promise you, he missed like a couple of doses. My RJ never got in trouble, which surprises people because RJ is kind of like Dennis the Menace.
Oh, okay.
He's really a good kid, but he's kind of all over the place. He's gonna say whatever. And I remember his teacher saying, he just wasn't as attentive today. Like he just wasn't the same. And I was like, honey, did you forget his medicine? And yes, and it was really one of those things where I was like, it was clear, like, because he doesn't have hyperactivity. He's not going to be one of those kids that's going to be like jumping off the walls. He's just going to ignore you. He's going to be in Spaceland. He's going to be thinking about Fortnite and all the other stuff he could be doing other than schoolwork. And so I think that it was super important for me that I didn't want people to label him, but I also needed my husband and everyone else to know, like, this is a real diagnosis for him and he's struggling with it. Like he's really not okay with this. So
you all have brought up all of these amazing points. I don't even know where to start and jump in. Did y'all want to ask me, or did y'all just want to let me go and do my thing?
I think the first thing is, where the heck do you diagnose your kid? How do you, most people don't know where to go. Like, I'm struggling, my kid is clearly struggling, and I don't know how to do this.
Right. So that is a very good question. How do we get a diagnosis of ADHD? So oftentimes, if parents are not the first people to recognize that something is going on with the child, teachers are, daycare workers are. A lot of times parents will say they want to label my child. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want to take the extra time. But in fact, teachers and daycare workers are around children all day. So they know when there is a child who is an outlier, who doesn't do what everyone else is doing. So they're usually going to be the first ones to say, Mom, Johnny's having trouble falling out of his chair. That's a buzzword, or staying on the floor, things of that nature. And then when you say, okay, maybe something is going on, who can I go to next? You probably want to go to your primary doctor, your child's primary doctor. So that's going to either be your family practitioner or your child's pediatrician. And so they are going to do usually a series of questionnaires, which could be a Connors or a Vanderbilt. Those are some of the more common ones. And then they're just going to ask you some questions. They're going to ask you, what's it like for the child to be at home? Can the child stay seated? And they're going to go through the whole battery of questions that make up the criteria. And then a lot of pediatricians and family practitioners have their medication, one or two that they're comfortable starting. And then if that is not working for your child, or if they're not responding to the dose that they start them, then they will send you on to either a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Now, when we're talking about psychologists, they usually are going to have either a PhD or a Psych D, PSY, big D. And so they are going to be able to give your child psychological tests, which are going to determine whether or not they do have ADHD indeed. Now, a neuropsychologist is someone who can go a step further and say, yes, they have it, and this is what is causing it. Okay, so either there's some processing speed disorders, maybe they had some head trauma, maybe they had a stroke at birth or around the time of birth, and all of these can be things that might be leading to their ADHD. Your psychiatrist is going to be able to make the diagnosis, but most psychiatrists, unless they are in an academic setting, so they're at a university, all right, the children's hospital that's in your area, unless they are there, they are probably going to not, just only give, and I say only, because we definitely do some therapy, but therapy is not going to be our focus, and we don't do psychological testing in the way that psychologists do. So when it comes down to medicine, if that's something that a parent chooses to do, I like to use the kind of the mnemonic that psychologists get the gist of medicines, but they can't prescribe them. And psychiatrists can treat, the TR, can treat with medicines, but we can also do therapy as well. But when it comes down to a diagnosis, you're going to need either a physician, and the first one you're going to go to is your primary physician, your child's primary physician. And then from there, you can go to either a psychologist or a psychiatrist to get, the diagnosis confirmed if it's in question.
So, Dr. Brandy, what are the symptoms, I guess, is what I'm trying to asking. What are the signs parents should look out for to even prompt them to get their children evaluated?
Absolutely. So that is a good question. So what are you going to see at home? What is all this talk about ADHD? Well, let me tell you, there are 3 types of ADHD. Okay. So we used to talk about ADD, which is this attention deficit disorder, and then ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Well, now it's all ADHD, and it's one of 3 presentations or 3 types. The first is predominantly inattentive presentation. The second is predominantly hyperactive impulsive presentation. And the third we call combined, because you have both the inattention as well as the hyperactivity impulsivity symptoms. Now, when we talk about inattention, these are going to be kids that lose things, forget things, are easily distracted, are disorganized, they procrastinate, and then they rush through and make careless mistakes on everything. I like to call it the lights are on, but nobody's home, because you're calling their name and they are not responding. And then after the 5th time, they're like, what, why are you screaming my name? And you're like, because I've called it 5 times, All of those are symptoms of inattention, all right? Now, your hyperactive impulsive symptoms are what most people think about, the kid who's always on the go. So blurting, interrupting, always on the go as if driven by a motor, can't stay seated, talkative, loud, fidgets. All of these are going to be symptoms of hyperactivity, impulsivity. So if you have symptoms of both, then we call it combined, and then you have the ADHD combined presentation.
I would say I'm definitely ADD. I've known that for a long time.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't realize that and I've never been diagnosed. Full disclosure, I am definitely diagnosing myself. I know I shouldn't do that. But the more I've learned about it to help my daughter, the more I'm like, wait a minute, I do that. Wait a minute, wait. Oh, yeah, I do that too. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Brandy, but I've also been reading that there's a very strong genetic predisposition. So usually a child that has it has gotten it from one of their parents. And I'm pretty sure that's me. in my child's case. But can you tell us more about that and the other potential causes? I think you've listed a couple already.
Absolutely. So 51% of fathers with ADHD are going to give it to their kids, and 41% of mothers who have it are going to give it to their children. Siblings, we know that there is a higher incidence in siblings, and there's even a higher incidence in twins. So if there's one child in your family who has it, you are very likely to have a second child with it as well. Some things that we know that can cause it and I mentioned some things that can happen to you, I guess, after you've been born, like a head trauma. We see sometimes veterans who come back from war and they've had some sort of head trauma. They have an ADHD-like picture. We still treat it the same, but we also know that low birth weight, prematurity, these are things that can predispose you to it. There are some toxins. Lead is something. So if you're living in a home that was built prior to 1978, there may be lead chips, lead paint. And so young kids are going to mouth and they're going to be taking in lead from the paint. So that's something else that we want to watch out for as well. But in large part, it's what we call multifactorial in medicine, which means it comes from a whole lot of different places. You got the gene, you got the environment, you may have had some trauma or something else going on. But really, we just don't know. We don't really know why. We don't have a place or a way to really pinpoint it and say, this is what causes it 100% of the time.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you talk about medication as a treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's hard for a lot of parents to come to terms with, having to medicate your child, especially a young child.
Yeah.
So can you kind of walk us through that decision making for parents? Like, are there other things that you can try before deciding to start medications? What do you usually counsel parents on?
So honestly, by the time that someone comes to see me, they are ready. They are either of the impression that we've got to do something, or at least they're considering it. And I really like it that way better. That either that they're open-minded about it or that they're ready, because it's just because I'm so passionate about what I do. I'm like Erykah Badu, and so to have people come and just say this is bogus, I can only take so much of that. But what I will say for parents is that listen to me, parents. Medications are gold standard. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that in young children that we start with behavioral treatments or therapies first. And these are going to be getting parents in parent behavior training. And that could be things like behavior charts, being gentle parenting with the kid and things of that nature. Some people talk about changing up the diet, has not really proven to be effective. Some people have talked about supplements like zinc and fish oil, not really been proven to be effective. And then there's several other behavioral modalities, but really none of them come close to the benefits, the consistent benefits of treating a child with ADHD with psychotropic medications. And I used to tell parents, well, we can try this and we can try that. But really at the point that you are like, look, we are in this and we're going to get our child better. That's really, kind of what you need to be thinking.
Yeah.
And those other things are definitely worth trying. And I encourage parents to try them because it's much better for them to try them and realize for themselves, this is my opinion, that didn't work, than for me to say to them, this is what you got to do. Nobody responds positively to that.
Right.
That is true. I think that the hardest part of being a primary care doctor is having to tell a parent, one, hey, guys, it's pretty clear that she or he is struggling because they have some attention.
Right.
And then it's like, well, I don't want my child labeled. Well, she or he doesn't have to be labeled. It's all about, knowing and trying to figure out ways we can help them as much as we can. But if we're not helping them, then they're going to fall behind.
Well, here's the deal. I don't want my child labeled. I try to encourage them to consider this. Your child is already labeled. Your child's teacher sees that child on the floor when the other 14 students are in desks. They know something was going on. So
say it again, girl. Say it again, Dr. Brandy. That
it doesn't take all day to the sun shining. When I wake up some mornings, it's already up. So I don't need to wait till noon to see if the sun's gonna come up. It's already up when I got up.
And I don't know if this is really a good thing or not, but I'm just being very honest with y'all. I was actually relieved when my child was diagnosed with ADHD. Like, seriously relieved, because, you know, a lot of times parents are judged by their children's behavior. Yeah. And I felt very judged, you know, whether people said anything to me or not, by behaviors that I felt like I could not control or fix or change. So when it was an actual diagnosis to say, okay, this is why she behaves this way, this is why she is impulsive, this is why X, Y, and Z, at least I could say, all right, now we have a cause and now we have a treatment. And I mean, happy. I don't know how else to say it.
I mean, I think the best story I have for RJ was literally, we were on a cruise ship. My mother paid for a cruise for all of us. And I joke about the Dennis the Menace, but that's literally what I have to go with. It was kind of like when he would come around the corner, all the crew members would be like, RJ's coming, but it wasn't a good thing. Like, it was not good. Like, I'm not saying, ooh, look, cute little RJ. No, be like, RJ's coming, like, hide the silverware, hide the plates, put everything away, coming around the corner. And it was kind of like, he was 18 months, y'all. Like, I was like, I'm worried that this is gonna get worse. And it did. I mean, you know, he was a shyer kid, so his teachers wouldn't really pick up on it because he didn't have like the hyperactivity part of it necessarily, but he was such a handful. And I would be like, and it's interesting, like even now his teachers notice when he doesn't take his medicine, and it's really important. And I was like Dr. Kristen, it was like a relief. Like I was like, whew, I'm glad we know something. I'm glad I'm not by myself.
Listen, everything that you ladies are saying, I could just jump in there and just, oh my goodness. Let me go back. Let me go back to the label. Okay. This is why labels are important. You got a banana and you got an apple. One of them you can peel or you just bite right into it. We need to know if we're dealing with a banana or if we're dealing with an apple. We got to treat it a little bit differently, right? An apple, we can stand to drop and maybe step on it. A banana, if we step on it, we're going to crush it. Nobody's going to want to eat that banana because you got to scrape it. This is why we need to call things as they are so we can deal with them appropriately. I can't handle a banana like I do an apple. And if you're telling teachers from year to year, this child is a banana, they're going to treat this child, differently based on that. So the labels are not bad things. It just tells other people, look, my child may learn a little bit differently. My child may need to sit in the front of the class. We can't trust him in the back. My child may not eat lunch because he or she may be on a stimulant that may have their appetite very low. The labels are not all bad, but they're being labeled regardless. There was something else you said. Let me see. I'm going to have to start taking notes. What else were we talking about? We talking about the cruise ship. We were talking about the hyperactivity. Oh, my goodness. My brain was just like, yes, talk about that. And then I forgot all of them. Let's see. Start talking some more. I got some more stuff. I'm going to just say, hold on. Let me jump in here the next time.
I love the fact that you compare like banana to apple, because I think the hardest part is definitely kind of that stigma. I think the hardest part, and I think even harder than Black women, is Black men.
Oh,
like, they're really
especially Black men on their Black sons.
Yes, and I don't know how to help there. Like I don't know how to get rid of that stigma.
I have seen more dads cry in my office than I've seen dads cry anywhere. And let me tell you what happens. It takes a lot of time. Like, you know, when I decided I wanted to be a pediatrician all along, that was my goal. That's my heart. And so when I discovered psychiatry, I first listened to what are all the things that people say about child and adolescent psychiatrists. They don't listen. So I spend the first part of the interview just not talking. They just want to start medicine. I make it clear to parents, you don't have to start medicine. They just want to increase medicine. I make it clear to parents, these medicines are based on weight. We're going to start low and go slow. So if I give them 5 milligrams of whatever medicine, you can't expect a miracle. Much like if you weigh 300 pounds, you can't expect 5 milligrams of Tylenol to fix your headache. So I do a lot of educating. That's probably the majority of what I do. And then I can make parents feel comfortable with the decision for us to go forward with treatment. So I think that is, parents, if you're out there and you're wondering, do I start my kids on medicine? You first need to make sure that you feel comfortable with whoever is going to be prescribing them, or whatever treatment you're going for. If it's therapy, and by the way, everybody needs therapy, okay? That is exactly what we're doing when we call up our girlfriend and we say, girl, let me tell you, we're about to engage in a therapy session, and you're about to do it with someone who may not give you sound advice, okay? So you got to be cautious of that. So therapy is good. Therapy is good. And we probably all, we all need to be in therapy. And especially if you have a child with a special need, ADHD is one of them. It's very taxing because nobody thinks about the toll that having a child with ADHD has on a parent. It has on a relationship. It has on that child. And I encourage parents, think about your child. How many of you are whipping your kids every day when they come from school? And the kid come in and assume the position, and then they do it again tomorrow. Okay, you got to do something different to get something different, right? So it's kind of like the parent who says, I don't know why that my kid has diabetes and he won't control his blood sugar. Well, are you giving him his insulin? No, I don't want him labeled. Well, you can't control your blood sugar if you don't have your insulin. Now you need some behavioral pieces in part to go with that, like a calendar, a reminder, a phone. But without your medicine, you're likely to lose your calendar, your phone, your sticky notes. I keep sticky notes with me. But if I forgot them all the time, it wouldn't matter. If I got to the grocery store and never had my list, what good does the list do me? So you need the medicine and you need the behavioral piece. And that's really what I want to drive home, is that the combination, and that's in all of mental health, the combination, most other things are going to be therapy and then add medicine if you need it. But with ADHD, you're just going to have that medicine piece. It is so important.
So we do have a question, and someone said, and this is something that I've researched for my own son, is how long do kids normally stay on medication, and how do we ensure no addiction issues further down the line?
Oh my goodness, what a fabulous question. Thank you.
That is a really good question.
That's a really good question, because I have my spiel. I know what parents are concerned about, and drugs is the number one thing, especially if there is a history of substance abuse in your family. This is what the research has consistently shown. Listen closely. If you treat the child's impulsivity, aka their ADHD, they are much less likely to get on drugs.
Say that again.
Yes, that is so true. That's the research I've also done. So I'm like, I was waiting for Dr. Brady to say that.
If you treat the child's ADHD, they are much less likely to get on drugs. Now, does that mean that they won't? No. If I had a crystal ball and I were psychic, I wouldn't be here. I'd be doing something else. But I can tell you what the research says, and that is that they are much less likely to get on drugs. Let me just walk you through the timeline according to Dr. Brandy of ADHD. How does it present? Young kids, kindergarten, first and second grade, they're extremely hyperactive. And this is typical now. Your child may not look like this, and that's okay. Typically, K1 and 2, very hyperactive. Rolling on the floor, loud, can't stay in their seat, sharpening their pencil 24 times in an hour, okay? Third grade, suddenly there's a switch. academics get hard. I don't know why. I'm going to ask my teacher friends one day. But the academics get hard. And this is very dangerous because suddenly this kid is no longer rolling on the floor. They're sitting in their seat, but their brain's still moving. The teacher says, all right, class, tell me about this sentence. And your son says, see Jane run. And the teacher says, strong work, little boy. Now, how was Jane moving? And he doesn't have a clue what he just read. He cannot tell you back. The concentration was not there. So he could call the words, and you're like, my kid's reading on a 5th grade level. Your kid's calling words on a 5th grade level. Reading is about comprehending and giving it back. So that's 3rd grade. So there's a big jump and a mad dash for my office, Christmas time of 3rd grade year. Because now the teacher has pulled you in and said, little Johnny, we're in trouble. He may not be passing. So there's a big 3rd, 5th, 7th grades, okay? A lot of kids are going to, bloop, grades go down, all right? Now, 5th grade, we're coasting along, because some kids are going to be able to math, really smart kids, all right, are going to be able to coast along. 7th and 8th grade, what happens? Another odd year. Academics gets harder again, but now you got these girls. So let me tell you about girls. Girls are not likely to be hyperactive, so we miss them. They're chatty Cathy's, and they're a little bit irritable, but we call it feisty. All right. So they get to 7th grade. Now you say, hi, little daughter. So sweet. I love you. And she's like, rah. And you think it's just her period. But when you come to my office for depression and anxiety, because for some reason, depression and anxiety are a little bit more appropriate, and people will accept that. And I'm like, tell me about her in 3rd grade. Oh, her grades dropped. She was a straight A student until 3rd grade. Really? Tell me more. Did she talk a lot? Did she have a hard time staying in her seat? Yeah, the teacher would say she, kind of moved around. Do all the history. It's all there. So 7th grade, they start presenting with irritability. All right, 7th grade, irritability. That's girls and boys, but usually the boys have been called. The girls are not coming in with irritability. So we go from hyperactivity, then we go to inattention. Also in 7th grade, some things happen developmentally. You let them go to their friend's house. You leave them with their older siblings. You leave them with your nieces and nephews who are their cousins, and they are hanging out. All right. Hyperactivity, little kids. Inattention, those 3rd grade kids, 5th grade kids, 7th grade kids. Impulsivity. They do things before they think about it. All right. So they are ingesting things. They're doing things with other people of the other sex or maybe the same sex that you did not want them to do at this age. And then they turn 15 and they start driving and they run people off the road because they changed lanes before they looked. They were speeding and they totaled 2 of your cars because a tree jumped out in front of them and they thought they could make a yellow light and they T-boned somebody. All of that is impulsivity. So we go from hyperactivity to inattention to impulsivity. Now, don't get me wrong. You're still doing all that other stuff in between. Now, somebody I know is saying, well, I'm grown. I don't have it. Let me tell you, 50% of people who had it as a child, nothing magical about 18 in this country except you can vote and go do that. But also at 18, you're going to still have your ADHD 50% of the time. Let me give you some astonishing statistics. 33% of kids with ADHD never finish high school. That has nothing to do with their intellect. It has everything to do with the fact that, remember the 7th grader, she grows on to be in the 11th grade, and now she can't focus, and her self-esteem goes down. Somewhere long before 11th grade, self-esteem goes down. She knows the work, but she can't make better than a 68. So now she's anxious. Am I going to make a 68? I said, or she's saying, I'm never going to make more than a 68. And then you bring her to me for those symptoms. But if we treat her ADHD, she gets higher scores. All right. So 50% go on to have it in adulthood. 33% will drop out and never finish high school. And 5 to 10% only. 5 to 10%. That's the number of kids, percentage of kids that will finish college with ADHD. This data has been repeated. So ADHD is not just about an inconvenience. It's about life. It's about keeping your kids off drugs. It's about keeping your kids alive. It's about keeping your kids safe. It's about keeping you as an adult employed. Adults with ADHD, they walk in and they realize, I don't want to work no more. I'm quit. That's what ADHD looks like an adult. It looks very irritable. It looks like you're lazy. It looks like you got all these dreams and these goals and you're just sitting on them because you can't get started. Procrastination. It continues. Y'all look like y'all got questions. Jump on in here because I'll be talking all day.
I'm the queen of procrastination. There
and
is that.
Get it twisted. Sometimes the quest for perfection is a sign of procrastination. I'm gonna write it down and I'm gonna rewrite it and I'm gonna work it again and I'm gonna rewrite it. Procrastination, just go do it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had to teach myself that again. Because as I got, I'm sure I had ADD. Me and Dr. Kristen are both self-diagnosed by ourselves. I actually got a diagnosis of it. But I think one of the things that you said that just spoke to me so much is one of the things that I did a lot of research. Now, mind you, I'm a primary care doctor. I see kids with ADD. But when my own son was diagnosed, it became a mission to get figure it out. You need to know everything. One, because I had to teach my husband and make him comfortable with what we were going to do for my child. But when I finally told my teacher, she was like, I think my daughter has that. Her daughter, or my son's teacher, her daughter was in high school and had gotten in 3 car accidents. And it was literally her attention that was the problem. And then she was like, well, she's always had this anxiety. And I was like, I think you should go. I've done a lot of research and I think you should go get her tested. But it was me.
That is a very common presentation.
My son that came to that conclusion for her. And I was like, I'm not her doctor. I'm not trying to tell you anything. And sure enough, that's what she had. But it was like, I don't want this research. And I think you should go get her tested.
That is very common. Just last week, I saw 3 11th grade girls on the same day. 3 11th grade girls, all coming in with anxiety. And in my mind, because I know I get passionate about ADHD, I always tell myself, no, Brady, don't do it. Don't do it. Ask about all these other symptoms. So if you come in with a chief complaint or primary problem, complaining of or reporting depression or anxiety, and I ask you all those questions and you don't endorse anything except I'm depressed and I'm anxious, well, then you don't meet criteria for that. And so I need to go to something else, and usually it's going to be ADHD. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot have those symptoms as well, but ADHD is so easy to treat. Oh my goodness! The next day, the first day you take the medicine, like you said, you all kids, teachers know. Mm-hmm. Did y'all miss something today?
Yeah.
So the day you take it, you know.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see that difference in my son, but also the difference in me when I was finally diagnosed and treated. It was kind of like, oh, okay.
One of my closest friends, and she's a physician as well, her notes don't get done. Her medical notes don't get done. And even when you're talking to her, the conversation, it's not linear. We're kind of squirrel tree. We're all over the place. Her handwriting. Yep. Her handwriting, even when we were in residency, if I had to come behind her and manage one of her patients, if I was on call or whatever, I could tell if she'd had her medicine that day based on her handwriting.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is hilarious. One, Dr. Kristen is definitely squirrel tree sometimes.
I mean, and this is why I don't like to-do lists. And I think it's interesting because Dr. Tamika, to-do list actually helps her.
Oh, I live by to-do list.
Just makes me more anxious because nothing ever gets done. I have a list of 10 things to do. By the end of the day, I haven't checked off anything. I have 10 incomplete tasks. I've started every single one of them. I haven't finished.
But you don't finish them.
But I don't finish because I start on one, I get distracted. I'm like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do this. I start working on that, and then I get this. I was, and then I can't check off nothing by the end of the day. And I'm like, well, what's the point of a to-do list if I can't check nothing?
I am the queen of the to-do list. If I don't have it, it is a problem.
Yeah, I have mine, and I can't do it. I'm still on paper. Yeah, I can't do that electronic stuff. I'm still on paper, and I know where mine is. And you might try, Dr. Kristen, to make your list in order, and maybe do just 2 things on one piece of paper. It's going to be a lot of paper. And then flip over and then do the other 8. Or do 2 more and then flip. And maybe do that and come up with a system where you can cut it off. And then it just kind of goes over so you're not wasting so much paper.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to try it. I'm gonna have to try something because what I'm doing is not working.
Or maybe you can do check marks before, during, and after. So if you get a thrill out of the check mark, which is what I do, doing the check mark is really the key.
That's the fun part.
Check to start, a check I'm halfway through, and then a check at the end.
I like that. So and similar to that, I heard someone else in a Facebook group I'm in suggest doing, like, if you look at a task, most people's tasks are like have multiple steps. So they were like, because they felt like they were never completing a task, they started making their to-do list where they broke down the steps of the task. So even if the task wasn't complete, at least you can check off, okay, well, I did this part, I did this part, I did this part. And for them, that seemed to help. So like you're saying,
I bet that makes you feel so good. All those checks on one page. Ooh,
it's so defeating when you start the day with this beautiful list and you end the day and you can't check nothing off. I'm like, okay, what did I do all day?
I can imagine that's very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. Yeah.
I think the best thing I can do is I try to make my list based off the day. So now that I tell people this all the time, I think my ADD was I was a procrastinator, but it was perfectly fine until I took a new job. So as soon as I was 50% with the medical school, Dr. Brandy went to IU School of Medicine for residency. Whoop, whoop. You know, I'm super excited.
That's right.
Well, I teach at IU School of Medicine. And so when I took a job, 50% of my job became IU School of Medicine. The other 50% was clinical. It was really hard. Like, I feel like that was like the biggest trigger in my life to say, not only do you have ADD, but you're not going to be able to do both these jobs.
Because of organization. Suddenly, half of your world was over here and the other half was here. And that's a lot. And so, guys, you know, just to let you know, ADHD really is real, in case you didn't know. But the part of the brain that it affects is called the frontal lobe, the part of the brain that sits right there. So not only are all of the executive functions like planning, executing a plan, changing a plan if you realize that it's not working, that's also where your personality lies, and that's where your mood lies, which is why we see so many kids with ADHD who are irritable, right? And those 7th graders that I talked about, because the same part of the brain that controls your ability to have executive functions is the same part of the brain that controls your mood and your personality.
And it's funny, I tell people all the time, RJ, so my ADD kid, is my moody kid. And so I feel like if his ADD is really bad or if he has too much on his plate, he is super moody. And people are like, well, he should, and he should speak and he should be nicer. And I'm like, let him be, because he can't, because his ADD won't let him adjust that quickly at his age right now to have that personality you want him to have. Like, he can't always be that bubbly kid. It's just not gonna happen.
How old is he now?
He's 9.
So that what, 4th grade?
He's 3rd grade. So he just turned 9.
Gotcha.
Yep. So he's definitely he's my moody bear.
Yep.
So that actually brings up an interesting question I have, Dr. Brandy. Speaking of moods, do you ever see people who may have ADHD, but they were misdiagnosed with like a mood disorder?
So one of the 11th graders that I told you I saw last week, the 3 11th graders, she and her mom came in, and we're anxious and depressed is what they came in for. And so, you know, I said, well, Mom, is there anything else, anything in her history, whatever. And the mom said, yes, she actually was tested when she was in either kindergarten or 1st grade. And the doctor said, the psychologist said, her IQ is 134. So there's no way she can have ADHD. And they gave that baby at that age a diagnosis of depression. And so that's kind of what they've been going in and out of treatment for depression since she was in like 1st grade, because her IQ was 134, which is a golden nugget. ADHD and intellect have nothing to do with each other. But your kid will underperform and not look as smart as you know they are, and you tell me about how smart they are because they can't put it on paper. And unfortunately, we live in a show me state. Even though we don't live in Missouri, any of us, we got to show me, right? And so if you can't show the ACT, if you can't show your third grade teacher, then you're going to look like you don't understand the work. And so, but yes, a lot of kids get misdiagnosed with mood disorders, but it's also important to know that you can still have a mood disorder or an anxiety disorder. What is most common though with ADHD is oppositional defiant disorder. These are the kids who are argumentative, defiant, oppositional, meaning they do the opposite of what they're told. They're easily annoy others. They give others for their mistakes. They are at times vindictive, and then when they don't get all of that, that is not criteria. Usually happen, then they tantrum. Tantrums look different at different ages. A 16-year-old is not going to roll around on the floor like a 4-year-old would. Excuse me. But a 16-year-old may walk off, slam the door, stomp away. Sometimes they'll raise up on you, if they get really emboldened. But yeah, so that is oppositional defiance. So kid comes to me with just and one thing that I'm going to do is the ADHD along with it. Yep. Did we lose each other?
I think we.
Here? Okay.
I think we're back. I think we may have lost you at the tail end of that, but I think we caught most of it. But that's great to know. Because can you tell us more? Because I have read about what you're talking about with oppositional defiant disorder. Is there is there anything to prevent a child from going on to having that? Like, does treating the child with ADHD early, do you see those kids going on to have ODD at a smaller rate, or is there really anything that can change that?
So it's really a progression. So what happens is you've got a kid with ADHD. You're always upset with them because they're not finishing tasks. They're getting confused. They didn't take the trash out. So you're fussing at them. I think it's my internet going in. Okay. All right, I'm sorry. They're frustrated with themselves. And then from there, you kind of spiral into now starting these tantrums. And you parents over here, and they're mad at the kid, and then it just kind of goes into this big ball. When you treat the ADHD, the ODD, because I did not say anything about impulsivity being a part of the oppositional defiant disorder, there's you walk in and you see them pouring Kool-Aid, and are you like, no? All right. All of that is impulse driven. So if we can stop the impulsivity, then a lot of times the ODD symptoms do improve.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we have a question from the audience. Did you want to take that one, Dr. Tamika? Read our question.
All right. So it says, my son is in the gifted program and he is undiagnosed ADHD. I've been planning to take him, but that's asking an ADHD mom to fill out the paperwork. Been there, done that. Since he's been in quarantine, he will just randomly break away and run up and down the hallway. I mean, he's playing PlayStation and then run up and down the hallway 2 or 3 times. It's concerning to me. What is that?
The fact that he takes out and runs?
Yeah.
That's hyperactivity. Remember I said running, acting as if driven by motor, not being able to remain seated. And that could look like, at the dinner table, your child can't stay there and eat an entire meal. So they get up, they walk away, they chew, they come back, they sit down, they stand up, they go over there, they come back, and they graze all day instead of having a single meal. So that's pretty classic ADHD. The question mentioned video games, and I think that this is an important time for me to come and say to you, somebody needs to hear it out there in the world, that fascination and concentration are not the same thing. So because your child can play a video game for 24 hours straight without using the bathroom or eating or even talking or looking at you, that has nothing to do with their ability to focus. Video games are always moving, pow, pow, wow, wow, making noise. All of that's going on, and words on pages just sit there. And if you don't move your eyes, they don't move. So I think that it's important that we know fascination and concentration are not the same thing, because parents are always coming and say, he can look at that video game for 12 hours. He can sit in this.
Yes. Oh, God. Oh,
let's talk about this, Mom. Let's talk about this.
It's a whole word right there.
So let's make sure we're not mixing those two. They sound alike, but they are not the same.
They are not the same. I have to tell people that all the time. Like, my son can play a video game. He can play Fortnite all day, every day. But it's not the same. That does not mean that his ADD is controlled. It doesn't mean it has nothing to do with his ADD. And he's fascinated with the game.
A lot of parents will actually use that as their explanation as to why the child can't have ADHD, because they can focus on this video game for multiple hours straight.
Yeah. So someone else asked, what are some questions I as a parent should ask when I take her to be tested?
Oh, that's a good, I think the testing part is going to be mostly the tester. So whether the psychiatrist, your primary doctor, the psychologist, they're going to be asking you questions. Make sure that you are prepared. You've already done the questionnaire. Have some examples. I think it's very important to be succinct. This is just my own personal pet peeve and that was really a pet peeve, but you're going to have questions on the back end. So don't give me a whole lot of videos. You want me to watch a whole movie, and then you want to tell me all the examples. Give me some key examples of each of those criteria, and then save your questions to the end. Some of those questions are going to be the ones that have been mentioned here tonight. What happens if I don't treat my child's ADHD? What other options do I have to treatment with a prescribed medications? What is the likelihood that my child will go on and grow out of this? When can we start weaning him off the medication to see if perhaps he doesn't have it? Are you okay with us taking medication holidays? And just a really quick note on medication holidays, which is when we say we don't give it on the weekends, we don't give it in the afternoons, and we don't give it on anytime school is not out. Remember this, ADHD is a 24/7 disorder. You need to think about everything. When you wake up in the morning, you need to think about, what am I going to put on? That's why clothes are flying everywhere. That's why tempers are raging. That's why your kid got into the shower and they were in there for 30 minutes. But the only thing that happened is they got wet. No soap touched their body because they forgot. Okay. They've been bathing for the last 12 years every day, but they still forget. We need to make a bullet point, system to help them get in. Y'all are laughing because y'all know.
That was me as a kid. My dad would be beating down the door like, what are you doing in there? I'd be singing.
And my child.
Like, oh my gosh.
So you got to focus in the morning. You got to focus. A lot of parents are battling homework. Okay. Homework is the review. If you didn't get it in class, that means you're going to avoid it. So what happens at homework? Tantrums. Okay. Tantrums. If I can figure out, if I just distract mama and I just lay out in the floor, she's going to say, fine, wait till your daddy come home. All right. And daddy's going to come home and he's going to be tired. And now I ain't got to do it. I'll take a 0, whatever. Okay. Now we in 3rd grade in December and you're trying to figure out, what can we do? Because now it's an emergency, but it takes you 6 months to get in with somebody like me. Mm-hmm. So you need to be planning. What happens to the older kids? Or let's just say the younger kids, on the weekends, the ball rolls in the street. They go to get the ball. They forget to look left and right. They get hit. Teenagers forget, they don't know how to swim. So they're out at the lake with their buddy and everybody comes home but your child. Now we're searching for them. These are real life things, people. Real life things. And it's all just little. He just got a little ADHD. Yeah, but he could die from it.
And that is so true. Someone said on this, and I need you to hear this. Someone said, you are God sent. God bless you. Because that is the stuff that we do not hear, that we need to know, because that is what will save our children. So you are, Dr. Brandy, you are for sure God sent today.
Well, I appreciate that. And I just encourage parents. Let me just say this real quick. Parents, like, I know how we feel. And I have kids. I have a 5-year-old, I have a 4-year-old, and I have a 21-month-old. Okay. So I've got little bitty babies. And I know I don't even want to give them nothing for reflux. You know, I just want them to be perfect. But sometimes you got to parent the child that you were given, not the one that you hope to get.
Ooh.
And just look at your child and put yourself in their shoes. If you see that your child is struggling, ADHD does not feel good. Mental illness doesn't feel good. Depression hurts. Anxiety weighs you down. You're always feeling heavy. And ADHD, it just hurts. These kids are always being screamed at. They feel like they can't do anything right. They can't make the grade. It's a rough thing. And so if you step back from your own ways, and I won't say what those ways are, because good parents, we're doing the best we can out here. It's COVID and all this other stuff is going on. The world is going crazy because of race. It's a lot being a parent, right? But we got to do the best that we can do. And that involves us, includes us. I beg of you to look at this diagnosis from your child's perspective. They can't keep friends. Don't nobody want to be around them because they haul off and hit somebody. Just slap them and keep walking. And now the teacher say your child is a bully. No, your child has ADHD. Don't let them call your child a bully. Your child has ADHD. But if you don't reveal it, you can't heal it. All right?
Dr. Brandy, I feel like we can go on for another hour.
We could. I'm telling you, I could be on here for another.
No, I'm gonna go ahead and ask you now, Dr. Brandy, because we're gonna have to have you back for another hour.
Absolutely.
At some point, we gotta have you back, because this was just amazing. And the fact that it's already been an hour, I'm just like, I can't. It feels like it's been 15 minutes. So
it does. I'm telling you, it feels. It's awful, but it does. It feels like I've been on here for 15 minutes. And I think part of that is that you've given us some wisdom that, you know, even someone who's researched it and who teaches her patients, it was amazing having you on today.
I appreciate it. If I see someone over here, Miss Denise says we are all ADHD, so we are functionally dysfunctional. And I just want to say something real quick right there. ADHD is inconsistently inconsistent. Y'all can tell I do this all the time. I got all the sayings. It's inconsistently inconsistent. And that's why you're mad at your child, because he made a 70 on his spelling test on Friday, when he knew those words Thursday night and he knew those words Tuesday night. But guess what? He didn't know on Monday, he didn't know on Wednesday, and he didn't know Friday when it counted. Inconsistently inconsistent. You want some consistency in your life, you got to treat it. And let me just say this, if I may, ladies, because we are coming to a close. I've had so much fun. Thank y'all for having me on. But if your followers want to see more of this level energy, because I'm always like up in your face, let's get these babies treated. They can follow me at Dr. Brandy B on Facebook and also on YouTube. I'm a little bit behind getting my videos over on YouTube. I got 3 babies, y'all. But at Dr. Brandy B, I'm live every Friday at noon. Every Friday at noon, that's Central Standard Time. So for my Eastern folks, that's 1 o'clock. Sneak away from lunch. Don't get fired because I can't take care of you. But 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, I'm over at Dr. Brandy B. ADHD is what I talk about most. Go over there and look at some of those videos. They're probably about 25, 26 already there. But I'm talking about everything. I talk about autism. There's a 2-part presentation there on autism, depression, anxiety, whatever you need, I've got it for you. I'm trying to get everybody better and let everybody know that psychiatry is cool. We're cute and we like to have fun.
You cute, Dr. Brandy. You fly.
People. So come on over here to the bright side. Get yourself mentally together, right? And let's just get ourselves together, y'all. It's time out for saying, I don't have that, something wrong with her, laughing at people. If you know your girlfriend got a problem, say, girl, I'll go with you. Take her. Be there for her and be there. Support her as she makes these difficult decisions with her kids, because these aren't easy decisions to make either. So I appreciate you all. You all are phenomenal. And I'm just so excited to be in your presence tonight.
We are blessed to have you here. I did put at Dr. Brandy B on B's page, so you guys can know.
Dr. Brandy
B. Follow her. I'm going to follow her. I am so excited to have you, and you have dropped so much knowledge. I'm going to stop my vacations with my kids.
Well, it depends. I mean, and let me just say this as my caveat. This is for educational purposes only, right? I'm not treating anybody. If your kid really has gotten to the point where they're no longer impulsive and they're no longer extremely hyperactive, and they really just need it to be the difference between a C+ and a B- or an A, then you can take the weekend off. But these people whose kids are rolling around on the floor and homework is stressful for everybody in the house, go on and get that baby that medicine. Go get it.
I'm getting this medicine. Stress me out that day.
It's okay. That's my thing. It's okay. Whatever you do going through, it's okay.
Thank you, Dr. Brandy. Thank you, Dr. Kristen. This was awesome. I swear, me and Dr. Kristen, of course, we already knew we was going to be really excited about this topic because we both got kids that are our kids that we got by birth. They are, so we got to keep them, and we love them. But this is awesome. You were awesome. Thank you so much,
Dr. Brandy. Thank you.
Are you coming back? Are you grad?
I'm coming back. I'm coming back. Yes, I'm coming back. Whenever y'all tell me, I'm coming back. Thursdays are busy days. This happened to be my vacation week, so it worked out. But I'll make time for you, ladies.
We will find a time that works for you.
Yes. We'll do a special edition just for you.
That's what I'm telling you. The girls missed out. Hopefully they'll watch it later. Yes. If you guys have questions, please go to Dr. Brandy's page. She already told you she's got videos up. She's ready for y'all. And if you have questions, I'm sure she will have a website and everything for y'all to go to.
It's coming. So book
check her out.
Summit is coming in December. And of course, it's going to be virtual. So go on over to Dr. Brandy B and follow me there so you can keep up with me. I like to have fun. I mean, I give my people a hard time, but it's only because I love them. I love every single person that is over there hanging out with me because I know that they could be doing something else. But the fact that they're there means that I'm at least entertaining them or something. I don't know. But I love everybody and I want us to just be well. I want us to be mentally well.
And that's it. That is it. I mean, I tell people all the time, health is wealth, and we don't understand that until we understand that. So thank you so much. You guys have a good night. Check us out.
Great night.
New time, 7:00 on Thursdays instead of late because it's almost football time and Dr. Tamika is a football head, so we have to move time just a little bit.
I love it.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.